Pretty Pink Posh is turning 10 years old this month. That is such a huge accomplishment for a small business that is family owned. So to celebrate, they've created the most amazing birthday release that you have ever seen. This release has an amazing assortment of stamps, dies, stencils, foil plates, and embellishments. So first, let's flip through all these new supplies. Let's take a look at the colorful embellishments this month. This is the Over the Rainbow Clay Confetti. Next, we have the Birthday Party Shaker Beads. These make such a great noise in shaker cards. We also have Berry Smoothie Shaker Beads. I love this color combination. You'll see it in my video on the Pretty Pink Posh channel this month. Then we have the Bright Rainbow Clay Confetti. As for dies, we have the Party Hats dies. You can see there are 3 different types of toppers, 3 sizes of party hats, and they layer. This is the Big Birthday Cupcake dies. There are so many accessories to work with in that cupcake. This is the Birthday Candles dies. Again, some solid candles and also some layerable candles. This is the Cake Shaker dies. You can use this as it is or make a shaker. This is the Party Balloons dies. I love that you get hearts, stars, and traditional balloons. This is the Pierced Stars plate. It cuts out an A2 panel and then pierces the stars. As for stencils, this is the Layered Balloons stencils. You can see 2 stencils create the balloons and then the third one creates the strings. This is the Layered Birthday Wreath stencils. Everything from presents to balloons to cupcakes in one stencil, which is so much fun. This is the half star stencil so that you can easily create 2-toned stars. Next up, we have the Birthday Treat Box dies. I'll be using this die set next week in another video. I wanted it to have its own video as well as the interactive cake dies because I really wanted to show you ways to use it and how to put it together. This is the star cover plate, cuts out all those stars and the A2 panel. I'll use that to make a shaker on the Pretty Pink Posh channel this month. This is the Happy Birthday Shadow dies and hot foil script. These are the Sentiment Strips birthday stamps. You can use these along with the Sentiment Strip dies, which were previously released. They work with all their Sentiment Strip stamp sets. This is the Birthday Train stamps and dies. You'll see this later in another video. The Pattern Presents stamps and dies, again later in another video. I love how the sentiments can fit inside the presents. This is the Party Time stamps and dies. Again, this will be later in another video, and the Birthday Cupcakes stamps and dies. Now for freebies, you can get the Potted Daffodils stamps and dies free with a $125 purchase. If you purchase $200, you get that stamps and dies plus this stencil. Now let's get started making some birthday cards. To start out, I'm using the Big Birthday Cupcake dies, and I've cut out the Pierced Stars panel out of white cardstock. That will be my background. All of the elements of the cupcake I have cut out. So I have the wrapper in some silver mirror foil cardstock. I have the little cake itself in some off-white cardstock. And then I have the frosting in some pink cardstock. I love the stitched edge, but there's also another die that you could use to layer or to cut out the center and make it a shaker. Then there's the sort of blue drizzle on the top. The hat, the party hat, I've cut out of green and yellow because you can layer the pom-pom. The bows, I've cut out of 2 different colors of pink because you can layer those as well. And the banner, I've cut out of gold mirror and white cardstock because we'll be layering that as well. So I'll cut out the little celebrate die out of the gold mirror cardstock and then put some liquid adhesive right behind it and place it down on the white cardstock banner that I cut out. Now I am placing all the little dots that are supposed to go inside the letters back into this flag or banner because I want it to actually look like a bee. So I just placed the whole bee back in there, but it was over 2 little dots of glue. For the bow, you can just place the center in a different color over that bow. For the party hat, you can place the little pom-pom on top of the party hat in a different color to get a layered color. But I also do like to do some ink blending. So on the cupcake especially, we'll have a little bit of Distress Oxide tea dye. For the pink, I'm using Kitsch Flamingo, and I'm using small blending brushes that work really well with inking the edges of these die cuts. I have a little bit on the star as well, and some on that blue drizzle on top of the cupcake and the frosting. I'm going to start with the liner and place it at the bottom of the card, popped up on some adhesive that is foam. And then I'll place that little cupcake right behind the liner so it covers up the gap between the two. Next, I'll place the pink frosting on top of that, and then the blue drizzle on top of the pink. And I'm gluing down, adhering with liquid glue, the blue to the pink. For the Celebrate banner, I adhered down the Celebrate to the liner itself and then placed the little side flags next to it. And anytime I have a really tiny element like this bow, I just use some sharp scissors to cut those tiny little foam squares into half, and then I can pop up the bow right on the liner as well. This is really starting to come together. There was also a die where you could cut out sprinkles, so I cut it out of several colors of cardstock to match the things that I already had going on that cupcake, and then just place the little party hat right next to it. I love the Celebrate banner as the sentiment, but I just love that cupcake. It looks so cute and delicious. For the next card, I'll be using the birthday candles dies, but first I want to create a background with the stars layering stencils. Again, I'm using a large blending brush because all of the left-hand sides of these stars are going to be in yellow, and then all the right-hand stars will be in salvaged patina. So that's why I'm not using small blending brushes this time. I'm using those larger blending brushes to cover the entire stencil with one color of Distress Oxide ink, which is my favorite ink to use over stencils because it looks so creamy. And look at how nicely that came out. I love that background. For the candles, you can cut out the basic candle and then cut out elements out of it like those stars. I'm using a piece of cardstock that I cut a candle out of as my background, and then I've cut the star panel down to 4 by 5 1/4 so I could mat it on top. And then I have the Wonky Squares dies from a previous release, and I'll place that in the center so that these candles will really stand out. I've created a couple of two-tone candles. This one is a stripe that you can cut out and place on top of another candle. Now, the flames have 2 layers to them, and then there's a tab on the inner layer. So this will make sense as I'm doing it. So place the orange layer over the yellow, and then a tiny dot of glue on that orange layer, and place that behind the candle. This way it has a little bit of a wick, a little bit of the inner flame, and then the outer flame as well. And it just comes out so cute. I'll pop these up in a row on top of the Wonky Squares dies. I like the way that little wonky square gives me some white on that card so that they stand out from the background. This is one of the sentiments from the Sentiment Strip stamp set, and I'm using the previous released dies. I've placed 4 little foam squares on the candles themselves in a line because I didn't want to place them on the back of the sentiment and then have it land on the middle of the candles. So this was a way to do it to make that sentiment pop up as well. For this next card, I'll be using the birthday wreath stencils. Now this time I'm using those small detail brushes, and that is because I want some of these elements to be different colors. I want all my balloons to be Kitsch Flamingo pink, so this is a way I can do that without covering the entire stencil with one color. Now I have some blueprint sketch and some salvaged patina, and those are the colors that I'll be using in this wreath. So for the party hats, I have salvaged patina, and for the cupcake liners, I have salvaged patina. For the presents, I'm using spun sugar. You can see that I've got my stencil over the white cardstock, and then it is stuck down to my waffle flower grip mat in the back. That is how I get nice crisp stenciling, because the stencil does not move at all. You don't have to hold it, you don't have to tape it down. It is absolutely fabulous. Now I've added in that blueprint sketch and a couple of different layers on top of the other items like the presents. Here I'm using the blueprint sketch for the balloon strings. I don't want to introduce a lot of other colors. I want these 3 colors to be my main color combination. Once we get to the candle flames, I will use a tiny bit of yellow, but it will be barely noticeable with the main color combination. It'll just kind of stand out as those little flames. I'll cut this down to 4 by 5 1/4, and then I'll start working on my party hats. You can see I've grabbed some cardstocks that really match the inks that I'm working with. I decided to use 2 cardstock mats and then the panel on top of that to really pull that color combination together. Now these party hats, you can have plain ones or you can start layering them up. This one creates dots. There's also one that creates stars, and you can see already down on the left, there's one that has little stitched circles. For each of these, I will add some white gel pen details, and that will help bring the whole color combination together since the panel is on white cardstock. So I drew little stars, I did little stitch lines, and some dots. Now I've cut out the toppers. Now what's great about the toppers is that they come in 3 different sizes and 3 different shapes. So it gave me an assortment. I just cut out a bunch of different different cardstocks to match, and they just look so cute on top. You could also layer them on top of each other. Now I'll use some foam squares to pop these up in a little row in the middle of my wreath and stamp "Have a Very Happy Birthday" from the sentiment strips and pop that up on some foam adhesive. I had so much fun creating this card. I love this color combination, and I'll definitely be using it again. I'm starting with the Happy Birthday Words stencil. So I have my A2 piece of white cardstock down on my grip mat. I'll place the stencil on top, and then I'll use some paper glaze to add a little bit of shine and dimension to this background that I'm stenciling. So I'll just put a little bit of the paper glaze at the top and then drag it down with the scraper tool. I've mentioned before, just make sure you're doing it at a nice angle, otherwise you're going to get lines, and don't drag too hard. Do it gently and you'll get a nice consistent look to your background. I'm going to set that aside to dry, and the way that I get it off the waffle flower mat is by pulling up the corner of the waffle flower mat. That will kind of detach it from that grip mat, and then I can set it aside to dry. Now I'll work on my balloons. Again, you have some stitched solid balloons and you have some layerable balloons. I like that you get stars, hearts, and the traditional shape of a balloon, and you also get the strings and all the different layers. So you can see I've cut out several with layers that I'm using my Sweet Petunia precision glue press to adhere down. I love having that option because even though these are not super teeny tiny, they are small enough, especially the layers on these star balloons. You can create a striped effect, which I think is so cute. And I love these colors, kind of a light pastel, and I've cut the strings out of gold mirror cardstock, added some white gel pen details, and you can just hide the top of the string behind the balloon. I like to place a little bit of glue on the string itself and then just place the balloon nib over it. Then I had some fun trying to arrange them because I really wanted you to see them all. I didn't want any of them hidden. So this last balloon is going to be flat. The rest of them were popped up on foam squares. And this was a way I could get, it was kind of a triangle. So 3, then 2, then 1 at the bottom behind those 2 in the middle there. And you can see the strings too. The sentiment says happiest birthday wishes. I've cut it out with one of those sentiment strip dies, and I'll pop it up on some tiny little foam squares. The background, I wanted a little bit of something around the background so it was matted. So I did trim it down to 4 by 5 1/4 and then popped it onto some of the blue cardstock that is that one blue balloon in the center. For this card, I'll use those layered balloons to create the background. I have some Catherine Pooler ink and a large blending brush. And I'm using a large blending brush because I want to do some really soft blending here. So you can see that I'm blending on the stencil first and then going on the opening where the cardstock is. And that gives me a really light look to these balloons, which is perfect for a background. For the second layer, you can just line it up next to the first so that those balloons overlap each other. And this time I'm going with an orange because I love the pink and orange color combination. I did get them a little bit darker than the first balloons, but that's okay. For the strings, I'll use the Be Mine Catherine Pooler ink. I didn't want to go with black because I wanted this to stay in the background. Now I'm using the cake shaker dies. I have the shaker parts placed inside the cake die, and I'm taping it all up so that it cuts out this frame. Then I'll grab those dies all together and cut out 2 frames of white fun foam. And then I need to adhere the white fun foam together. And that's going to create a shaker shape that we can use on top of the card instead of cutting into the card. So I have those 2 fun foams drying, they're glued together. I've also taken apart those frames so that I can just cut out the cake out of acetate. Now I'll use a little bit of liquid glue behind the frame, placing it onto the acetate to create my shaker window. Next, I take a little bit of liquid adhesive on the doubled up fun foam, flip it over, and lay it down on top of that panel background. I decided to add some frosting to the cake, so that was fun to do. And I wanted the inside of the shakers to be white, so I cut out another piece so that I could place the white cardstock right inside the opening of the shaker so you could really see the shaker goodies and the cake would look all white frosting. Next, I placed a little bit of anti-static powder tool all around the edge to make sure my shaker goodies won't stick to the edge. And now I'm placing that rainbow bright confetti right inside those 2 shakers. There's also a candle die. I popped up the candle die on some fun foam so that it wouldn't be too flat to the background. It would stand up, and then placed the little flames right behind that. So those are flat, but the candle itself out of mirror cardstock, gold mirror cardstock, is popped up on some fun foam. So I cut 3 of those out and then cut out 3 of the little flames. Now I'll place some liquid adhesive all around the frame of my shaker so that I can then place the window right on top. I decided to add a little bit of special frosting to the frosting, pink frosting I already had. So I'm just adding some liquid dots on each of the scallops of the frosting. I decided Bring on the Cake was the perfect sentiment for this card and cut it out of the sentiment strip dies and placed it right on the shaker at the bottom there. And this one was so much fun because I actually got to do some frosting, and it makes me definitely want cake. As you can see, I had a blast with this collection, but I'd love to hear if something caught your eye. Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget that Pretty Pink Posh will be having lots of prizes to give away during their blog hop and their Instagram hop. So be sure to check those out and enter to win. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. Is there like a... I don't know. Okay. I think we're fine. I thought there was like a smudgy across the camera, but...